Hello, I'm Captain Rick Riles, and welcome to this week's Florida Sportsman Action Spotter podcast. Wow, we're going to travel all around the state of Florida tonight. In fact, we're going to start over with a quick stop in Nosara Paradise Rentals. I just got to get my weekly fix. I got to find out how the billfish are biting, even though I know this time of year it's almost always good. Captain Craig Sutton will be checking in with us on that. And then we will start up in the northeast corner of the state with Captain David Voorhees, work our way all the way down the east coast through Alamorada, all the way up the west coast and out the Panhandle, finding out at each and every stop what's biting. This time of year, almost everything is the correct answer and just how good it is. Hey, we're going to get rolling tonight with a quick trip to Nosara, but you got to remember that this podcast and every one that we do is brought to you each and every week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Shimano, bringing people back to nature. By DOA Lures, your unfair advantage. By Tournament Master Chum, the best chum on earth. By Nosara Paradise Rentals, your dream vacation. And by Young Boats. You want the finest in flat spay and offshore hybrids? Don't forget to check out youngboats.com. All right, let's go to Costa Rica. You up for it? We'll be there in a flash. I told you we'd be to Costa Rica in no time, and here we are at Nosara meeting with Captain Craig Sutton. Craigie, how are you?
Hey, Ricky, I'm good. Just got the reports from today's catches. Looks like the sailfish is still there, and they're biting good. They had 7 on the Discover today.
That's a fine day. My goodness.
But the big mahi, that's the story. If we're not catching 1 or 2 of these 40-plus pound mahi every day, well, then we're going to catch 2 the next day. It's by far, this year, we're catching more big mahi this year we've ever caught. And we're still catching some yellowfin. Over the weekend, we had a couple of them in that 20, 25, not quite 30, but decent-sized fish, and, 4 or 5 of them. But,
yeah, let me ask you a question, Craigie. Those big mahi, are any of them coming in as teaser bites where you could drop a bait to them?
Yes. The one he was telling me, this was one from last week, that the fish come up on the teaser and they drop the pitch bait back to it. But I will tell you, they're not. That's not generally the way they bite. They just, the mahi, those big ones, they're a little spooky. So if they hit the teaser, they got to be super aggressive to hit that pitch bait. A lot of times they'll hit the teaser and they take off.
Craigie, I have talked for hours with our good friend Eddie Wheeler. That used to run the Ohana out of here. And you were talking about teasers, and I used to have a bowling pin daisy chain of those big bowling pins. And I know good and well it raised marlin because I'd see them come to it all the time. But if they came up and hit that daisy chain of wooden bowling pins, they weren't nearly as aggressive when they dropped back to a bait. Do your captains talk about that ever?
Well, we don't. Our last lure or tracking on the teasers has got a ballyhoo with no hook in it.
Mm-hmm.
And that keeps them coming back for it. But again, with the big mahi, sometimes they're a little spooky, and when they hit something like that, they might just flake off on you. But heck, the marlin, they're coming in. The marlin, they'll hit everything in the water sometimes. They get so aggressive.
Yep.
You know what? Those big mahi, man, those are nice. Those are nice fish.
Yep. All right, Craigie, we appreciate the heck out of it. How are your bookings looking?
Look real good. I was telling you the other day, June is almost 100% booked. I mean, we've got the smaller, the 23's got some open days, a lot of open days, and then the 27 Explorer's got a few, but not a lot. And all the 32s are booked almost every single day for June.
People better hurry up to go fishing this summer. And they need to understand that down in Costa Rica, August is winter time, and it's not only not real hot, but it's the time you want to be there to fish. Everybody thinks August, oh, no fish. Well, that's where we live. That's not where they live. It's a lot different. I know I was there, I guess, last August. I'll be there this August. You can probably count on me for every August. Thank you, Craigie. We look forward to talking with you next week.
Thank you.
That's Craig Sutton from Nosara Paradise Fishing. Now, let's check out the northeast corner of the state by checking in with one Captain David Voorhees. Good evening, David.
Hey, Captain Ricky, how's it going, buddy?
Excellent, excellent. Rainy weekend is over. Looks like we're off to a good start for this week. Tell me about the inshore fishing in Northeast Florida.
Well, Rick, all in all, it was pretty good this week, even, considering we're between those moon phases. So that doesn't give us the strong tide pools that I like. I like fishing around the new moon and those full moons because you get that real strong tide flow, and you also get those low tides. And for us up here in Northeast Florida, we like those extremely low tides because it pushes those reds out of the creeks into the main channel of the intercoastal waterway, which is where I really enjoy fishing. But we did see some nice trout this week. The topwater bite is finally going off pretty good. I had a couple of opportunities to throw topwater plugs today and actually caught us some nice keeper trout this week. Redfish is just absolutely on fire, unbelievable. Rick, I was telling you about, how we have this population of big reds anywhere from 28 to 35 inches all over the place now. Well, I actually caught my biggest legal red I've ever caught this week, and I talked with several captains and several tournament guys, and nobody around has ever heard of a 9-pound in Northeast Florida. Has never seen a 9-pound legal red, and he was only 26 inches long.
That fish got lost. That's the Louisiana fish, isn't it?
He was a big one. But, with that being said, the flounder, however, are somewhat small, a lot of small ones, but that doesn't bother me, Rick. I don't go out and target flounder. They're sort of, for me, just a bonus catch. I'm one of those guys that when I see a lot of small fish, or whether it's a rat reds or, small flounder, I sort of feel like, well, maybe the population, they'll be good for next year, or the population is okay. Or it gives me hope that there's plenty of these fish. If we've got a lot of small ones like this, then, there are going to be some big ones in the future. But no, not seeing any really big flounder. But, every trip I'm catching anywhere from 4 to 7 flounder. So those are pretty good numbers for me, considering I'm not even targeting these fish.
Yeah, they are, David, and I'm with you. It'll be interesting to see how the increase in the size limit will impact our numbers, because there's going to be a lot of 13s thrown back this spring that will be over 14 by fall. So we may be setting ourselves up for a good season. I certainly hope so. I love it when we do something and it works for a change. So we'll find out whether it's gonna or not. I'm certainly glad to hear that. And a quick question for you, David, because people want to know,
Yep.
What's your go-to? You mentioned your topwater bite. What's your go-to bait?
Well, my go-to bait right now, and when it comes to topwater plugs, there's 3 basic types of topwater lures. There's what we call a prop bait, and those are like your Devil Horse and your Johnny Rattlers. They've got the propellers on them. Some of them have a propeller at each end. And then there's the poppers, and those that have the concave front, which you chug along the chug-a-bug and things like that where you chug them. But my favorite is called the surface walkers, and that's like the Zorro Spook, the Top Dogs. And I like that surface action that the surface walkers give you. It requires a little bit of skill. You have to know how to walk the dog with those. But let me tell you, they're very successful. And a lot of my big 7, 8, 9-pound trout have come off of big surface walkers.
David, I'll add one thing to that, and then we'll close this out. But one of the best fishermen I ever fished with walking the dog like that was Jimmy Allen from Whiteshell. And Jimmy would make a cast, see where it landed, and then never look at his lure again. I mean, never. He thought it was so important not to see that fish rush up and splash that lure, because they so often go up to it and bump it, or go up to it and just splash at it. And you want them to do that because they're going to do it again and again until they finally bite the thing. And I don't know about you, but every time a big fish comes up and splashes on my surface lure, I tend to wrap it around the radio antenna in the center console of my boat.
Yes, I have to tell a lot of my clients when they're working it, the first thing I tell them is keep it moving. Don't set the hook I said, you'll know when the fish is on because your rod's going to bend over.
Yep, don't look at it.
The most important thing you can do is keep it moving. If you stop that action, you basically you're going to turn the fish off. The fish are not going to come up to it.
Bingo.
They won't come up to it when that thing's just sitting there. It's got to be walking back and forth and making all that noise and rattling and stuff like that. That's when they're going to hit it.
Yep, he'll get it if he wants it. And you're right. You just keep a steady motion. Keep your eyes off of it so you don't psych yourself out. When the rod bends, you got him on. Good point. Thank you, Captain David. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Absolutely, Ricky.
Captain David Voorhees from Northeast Florida, getting us rolling around the state tonight with our first stop. All right, let's stop down the east central coast of Florida where fish should be showing up. Now, the mahi are showing up offshore Jacksonville, and their numbers look pretty strong. Let's find out what they look like around the Melbourne Space Coast area with Captain Jim Ross. Jimmy, how are you?
I'm doing great, Rick. How are you this evening?
Good, good. Talk to me about your offshore fishing.
So, yes, there are some dolphins showing up. No, they're not as strong on this side of the stream as what you guys are seeing. Our fish are primarily coming up. It seems like they're coming from the Bahamas or something.
Right.
And they're coming across the stream just a little north of us, up towards the Daytona area. Mm-hmm. That seems to be where, because I'm down here in Canaveral. They seem to be coming across right around Daytona. The guys up there are getting better numbers. Now, the guys down here that have the ability to get to the middle or east side of the stream have definitely been catching those same fish. But once again, it's almost, you and I had talked in years past about the yellowfin migration.
Right.
And how we don't get yellowfin on the western side of our Gulf Stream. Mm-hmm. But yet you guys consistently, at certain times of the year anyway, can catch yellowfin tuna on the western side. We almost always have to go to the east side of the stream to get those fish. And it seems like the dolphin have taken a page out of the yellowfin tuna's book, and they're following that pattern this year.
Jim, I think that's right. A good friend of mine spent the night last night, as a matter of fact, at the Canaveral Buoy. He fished it all day on Sunday, and they limited out on very nice yellowfin, and they also had a good catch of mahi, and they spent about an hour on a blue marlin that pulled off eventually. But
man,
yeah, that happens. But after an hour, you got all the fun out of him. I'm ready for him to go away.
Now, was it just a big fish, or was it just exceptionally small gear?
No, it was a big fish. Yeah, it was a real big fish. This same captain called me one day, and he's a very, very good charter boat captain. And he called me on his satellite phone one day, and I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Oh, I'm bored to tears." And I said, "What's the matter?" And he said, "Well, about 9:30 this morning, we hooked this blue marlin. This is like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, right?" He said, "I'm sick of him. He's sick of me. The customers are sick of him." He said, "The mate doesn't want to crank on him anymore. We just couldn't do anything with him." And that'll happen sometimes. I mean, that's just the way it is. But how's your inshore fishing?
Our inshore fishery has seen some ups and downs. The Southern Mosquito Lagoon was really, really good last week, and now it's kind of drawn a blank. The guys aren't finding many fish the last 2-3 days. However, the Banana River is on the upswing. We're seeing more redfish over there and more bigger trout, and not big trout, but bigger trout, 17 to 24-inch fish. And, we get that springtime push of trout to come through. They migrate on up from the south. And, of course, they're following those mullet that are now coming into our area. So we expect it, but we normally get a bunch of really nice, solid fish out of the Mosquito Lagoon and the Northern Indian River, and they just don't seem to be there right now.
You think that's water related? You think that's because of the grass?
I'm almost positive because there's Calorpa, which looks like grass but is actually an algae that is growing in pretty good abundance on many of the flats in the Banana River. But the Northern Indian and the Southern Mosquito are barren, just absolute moonscapes. They don't even have the Calorpa, let alone seagrass.
Yeah, so they don't like that.
That's probably that's probably a lot of the issue right there. It's simply lack of habitat.
Mm-hmm. No, I think we're seeing that in a lot of places in the state, Jimmy. I sure do. All right, well, that's outstanding. I was going to ask you what fish in your waters you think needs more protection, but I think I know the answer to that question. Your trout are struggling, aren't they?
They're struggling. Yeah, our trout, redfish, everything that's inshore, because the dolphins are just having a field day with them. And honestly, offshore, Rick, our grouper could be a lot better than what they really are.
Northeast.
We have so many red snapper. We're just having a hard time finding a grouper.
Yep. Well, that's how I originally posed the question. I'm sorry I didn't pose it to you that way. Given the fact that sharks and snapper are way overregulated, what fish needs more help in your area? And in your case, that's certainly the speckled trout. And you make a good point. No grass, no place to hide. Fair game for everyone in the porpoises, no doubt. No doubt.
They sure are.
They can grab a 4-pound trout and swallow it in a minute. There's no question about that. Jimmy,
it doesn't take long.
Yep. We appreciate it as always and look forward to talking with you next week.
Fantastic, Rick. You take care. Look forward to it myself.
Thank you, buddy. Our thanks to Jim Ross for a great East Central report. Now we're going to head down to Stewart, my favorite little fishing village, and check in with Captain John Earhart. John, how are you?
I'm good. Glad to be here.
We're glad to have you, buddy. Tell me what's going on the chaos and the mayhem.
Well, this week we've had some pretty good offshore fishing. We've been getting a couple scalefish out front, a lot of kingfish, and a lot of blackfin tuna. The kingfish have been in a little shallower, 70 to 90 feet, and the blackfin tuna and the sailfish have been in about 90 to 120 feet, and out as deep as 350 feet. But most of the tunas have been getting live baiting or 90 to 120, maybe even 140 feet, just finding a nice little color change or an edge. And that's been holding a lot of tunas and sailfish right now, even a few nice-sized mahis as well. But we've been getting more tunas than anything this week. Mixed in with the kingfish in the shallower water, 70 to 90 feet, we're catching some really nice-sized mutton snappers right now, up to about 12, 15 pounds. Most of them are keeper size, 5, 10-pounders, but good action nonetheless.
John, let me ask you a question. You're talking about the blackfin tuna in 90 to 120 feet. Are you getting almost all of them on a live bait deep, or a lot of them striking at the surface?
First thing in the morning, we're catching them on the surface, trolling ballyhoo. And then after I get to about, 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, I'll switch over. If there's enough wind, we'll kite fish for them with like a half-ounce to a 1-ounce sinker, sending that bait, 10 to 20 feet down, and that's where we're catching the majority of the bigger blackfin tunas. So after 8 o'clock, I want to send a live bait down in the water column a little bit, and that's where we're going to get them.
So you generally start out your morning on the troll with ballyhoo, right?
Yeah. I'll troll, a little until maybe an hour, 2 hours after sunup, and then, I'll switch over and start live bait if I have the live baits available, or I'll just send my ballyhoos a little further down in the water column.
I see. Okay, well, that's interesting stuff. What's going on inshore?
Inshore, the snook fishing's been really good this week. A lot of keeper-sized fish and overslot fish as well. And most of that's been live baiting during the daytime. At night, we've been catching some on flare hawks, spool techs, and that's been around the bridges. And a lot of jack crevalles mixed in, a few redfish here and there. And surprisingly, we're catching a handful of trout this week too. So it's good to see. The sea trout are kind of showing up a little bit around the bridges and the flats right now. So hopefully that's a good sign for maybe a trout population coming back in our region.
I hope so. John, let me ask you a quick question. When you're fishing around the bridges in the daytime, is that primarily a live bait fishery, or can like a DOA terrorize or something worked around those pylons work, or do you prefer live baits?
Typically what I do is I'll have one or two of my clients fishing live baits, and then I'll have one or two of my clients fishing artificials. And the artificials we're using, they're going to be something that's going to go pretty far down in the water column, fishing real close to the bottom. A DOA terrori, a real heavy jig head with like a Berkeley Gulp shrimp on it, or a DOA bait buster, or a flare hawk, or a spool tech. It just depends. But the DOA terrori, man, that's a hard one to beat. I mean, if you're fishing that right on the bottom and there's a snook around, chances are you're going to get them.
Gotcha. I like the sound of that. Hey, John, I want to ask you a question. Certainly you and I can agree that red snapper and sharks have gotten way too much protection, and now we've swung the pendulum way too far the other way. Given that, what fish in your area needs more protection?
Believe it or not, I would say the amberjack. I know everybody hates that fish, but I have noticed in the past 4 or 5 years of my fishing in Stewart, because they were so prevalent, everybody's been fishing them excessively hard, and I'm just not seeing the larger amberjacks like I have in previous years. So, maybe they need to do a little bit better job at protecting them because, yeah, I'm losing a ton of red snappers and groupers to the sharks, but I'm also losing a ton of amberjacks to the sharks too. And if there's 30 or 40 people fishing an artificial wreck and they're vertical jigging with spinners and they're each losing 4 or 5 amberjacks to a shark, I mean, that's going to put a hurting on our local population of those fish.
You're exactly right, and I worry about cobia the same way. Cobia so often accompany those large sharks, and so people think that's a great time to catch one, and it's a very good time to hook one, but there's a good chance that shark's going to turn right around and eat your cobia, isn't there?
Yeah, previous years, that's another one I would worry about. But I think the Fisheries Management Council is taking measures to help protect the cobia fishery. I just hope they don't create a season closure when it's peak season here in Stewart to catch them, because that would really be something I would not like.
Yeah, that hurt a lot of us. As always, Cap, we appreciate it. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Yep, I'll talk to you guys next week.
Good deal. Captain John Earhart from the Chaos and the Mayhem. Hey guys, we've survived winter and my favorite time of year is here. It's time to put away the high-speed Wahoo gear and break out some of the tackle that can put the fun back in blue water fishing. Listen, we all dream about the days when a blue marlin crashes our spread, but let's talk some facts here. Almost all of the marlin we see off the east coast of Florida are under 300 pounds, and we just don't see the 50-pound dolphin like we used to. Well, what's that mean? That means it's time to stop by Strike Zone Fishing and check out the new Talicas and Speedmasters designed to put the fun back in blue water fishing. What makes Shimano and Strike Zone the only team you need to know? That's because while you're buying your new weapons, the staff at Strike Zone can splice 500 yards of braid backing on your new reels just to make sure there's nobody in the neighborhood that you can't handle. So stop by either one of the Strike Zone locations and just feel the weight of the new Talavera rods matched with Speedmaster or Talica reels. You'll see in a hurry that it's time to put the fun back in Northeast Florida blue water trolling. Our thanks to Captain John Earhart for a great Stewart, Florida report from the Southeast. Now let's move a little further south still and check in with Captain Alan Sherman. Alan, how are you?
I'm doing just fine, Rick. How are you?
I'm doing excellent, buddy. A fish have shown up and life is good in Northeast Florida. Tell me what's going on off the coast of Miami.
Well, it seems like the fish passed us by and got up to you guys much faster than they should have. But, we're still picking away at them here. I know.
That just breaks my heart.
I don't know what it is with this season. We've had some spotty action where it was really good, and then you thought it was going to just take off, and then they disappear for a couple of days. But we've got some sailfish offshore, and we've got some decent-sized kingfish, the spring run, 10 to 15 pounders, and some big blackfin tuna showing up. Only a few dolphin. They're really scattered and far apart, and quite a few bonitas, sharks, and barracudas. And the key to getting into any offshore action right now is to find a good color change, a good blue water color change, and get some baits out on either, from under a kite or free lined or with a little bit of weight to get them lower in the water column, and just keep working those edges. And if you can position yourself somewhere around an artificial reef as well, you increase your chances of scoring on some quality fish. But it's not like you can just go out anywhere and put your baits out and catch something, because it's not happening like that. They're not schooled up anywhere in particular, other than in the areas where these artificial wrecks are and along these blue water edges. So those are the keys, looking for some birds, looking for some bait fish activity. If you're looking for the mahi, the dolphin, you got to go find some frigate birds or some floating debris or, some bait fish fleeing, but you're going to waste a lot of gas trying to locate them because there hasn't been a lot of them out there. Some of the dolphin that have been caught this past week were caught by the guys fishing for sailfish in closer, so that's something you might want to target. Other than that, the tarpon fishing here has been pretty good. The ocean inlets have been great, especially on the outgoing tides. Along the beaches, the shoreline on the ocean side of Key Biscayne has had quite a few tarpon. And then inside of Key Biscayne along the shorelines, there's been tarpon there too. Bone fishing's been good. Sea trout fishing has been the best I've seen it in 4 or 5 years. I don't believe it's because the seagrasses have come back. I'm not sure why, other than the fish are spawning. And my belief is that when they spawn, they group up. So you might have, a congregation of 1,000 fish in the whole bay, and they're all in small areas where they like to do their thing, and soon they'll spread out and be difficult to find again. Other than that, that's what we've got going on here in somewhat sunny South Florida.
Good. Hey, Alan, given the fact, and I think we can all agree that red snapper and sharks have gotten way too much protection, but there are fish that are largely ignored. Of all the fish that need protection, which one do you feel like in your area is key to tighten the limits on instead of loosening them?
Well, because I'm a sea trout fisherman, a bay fisherman, that's one that I go to right away. I'd like to see those numbers come back to where you could catch 25 to 100 fish in a day. Not keeping them all, but just catching them. And you really can't do that year-round anymore. It's very difficult to find them when they're not spawning, and that spawning season is about to end. We get out of April and into May, and these fish are going to start scattering. And where they go, it's hard to say. It's not simple anymore without the seagrasses. So you're just wasting a lot of time trying to locate some fish that are so scattered out. So I'd like to see them. They've dropped it down to 3, so they did do a little tightening up on it. You're only allowed one over 20 inches and only one that over 20 inches per boat, not per angler. Whereas before it was per angler.
Right.
So they have done some, but I'd like to just see it catch and release, honestly.
Okay.
I'd like to see that for a handful of years and give those fish a chance to come back.
Yeah, and
fun to catch.
I agree with you that I don't think overfishing is a problem. I think the seagrass and the lack of quality water is the problem, but the fishermen can help by turning more back. There's no doubt.
No, for sure. Give them a chance.
Alan, we appreciate it as always, and I look forward to talking with you next week.
You got it.
Thanks, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Our thanks to Captain Alan Sherman. Says things are happening in Miami, but the mahi are not biting yet. But I'll bet I know a place where there may be a few stashed away down in Alamorada. Captain Nick Stanczyk, we're calling up the broad-minded. You read me, Cap?
I'm here, Rick. How you doing?
I'm doing excellent, buddy. How's fishing in Alamorada?
Well, we finally got a break on the weather and had a few good days. Friday, Saturday, Sunday was pretty nice. A little windy Saturday morning, but besides that, we had 3 good days of fishing, so I can't complain.
Good deal. What'd you catch?
Well, I did one of my swordfish camps where it's like a 3-day how-to, hands-on, rigging baits, driving the boat. Little swordfish schools, I call them. And the first day, we didn't get any swords, but we got a couple of nice blackfin tunas and a few mahis. But then the second 2 days, we got 2 swords each day. The biggest fish was just shy of 150 pounds, and we had a good group of guys from up north, New Jersey and New York, and then had a couple guys from the west coast of Florida, and we all had fun.
Oh, that's cool. That's good fishing, and that's a good time for it to happen for you. All right, I got a quick question for you, and you'll understand this. Given that red snapper and sharks are way over-regulated on the coast of Florida and have too much protection, what fish do you think needs more protection?
It would never bother me to see the swordfish size limit go up.
Okay.
From where it is, and also the bag limit. On a charter boat, it's up to 6 per boat. On a recreational boat, it's up to 4 per boat. Even if they went down to 2 or 3 per boat, I think that would be plenty. In reality, it wouldn't bother me one bit if they up the size limit a little bit and reduce the bag limit a little bit too.
Now, how do you feel about the ones that you release? Do most of the ones that you release, they seem to be in good shape?
I think so. I'm sure there's obviously some casualties, but we've had probably 15 or 16 recaptures that I can remember in the last handful of years. Just had one recently caught almost 2 years later in the Gulf of Mexico, and that fish grew over 200 pounds.
Wow.
I think we let it go around maybe 50 pounds. I think it was caught maybe close to 200. So anyhow, at least 150 pounds in that 2-year period. But it was great to see, a small fish, and 2 years later, it'd be over 200 pounds.
Yes.
So that was kind of cool. I've never caught a tagged one myself, but we've tagged probably 250 the last handful of years, and always good to learn more about the species.
Gotcha. Captain Nick, we appreciate it as always. We look forward to talking with you next week.
Sounds good, Rick. Thanks for the call.
Thank you, buddy. Captain Nick Stanczyk from Alamorada, where he says he'd like to see more broadbill swordfish protection. I can understand that. I want to keep them increasing like they are. I think we're doing good things with swordfish. Let's keep that up. Wouldn't bother me a bit to see it tighten up a little bit.
You know what Yamaha Outboards love? The genuine formula and consistency of Yamalu marine engine oils. Outboards are subjected to punishing conditions like high loads, salt, and humidity, a mix that automotive oils can't handle. Yamalu full synthetic and marine performance formulas are certified to protect against friction and corrosion for reliable performance every time. Find Yamalu marine oils at your nearest Yamaha Outboard dealer. Locate them at yamahaaoutboards.com/dealers. Yamaha, reliability starts here.
Hey, Raj, being consistent is a mark of a quality product. If you've been Florida's #1 chum for over 10 years, there's got to be a reason.
For 10 years, Tournament Master Chum has lived up to its name. That's why more tournament pros insist on Tournament Master than any other chum. It's the only chum with menhaden milk mixed right in. That means it gets the scent out faster and deeper than any other brand of chum. It comes in a grind size for every species from kingfish to catching bait. Your fishing time is way too precious to use second-rate chum. Bring the action to you by insisting on Tournament Master Chum. It's worth every penny.
When you're ready for the finest in custom-made flat spay or inshore-offshore hybrids, you are ready to meet the Young family in Inglis, Florida. For over 21 years, the Young family has built custom boats one at a time for every type of fishing. Nothing can sneak up on a flat quite like the Gulf Shore flats boats, and I've never fished a better hybrid than the Young 24s and 27s. Rob Young is a naval architect who takes tremendous pride in each and every build for each and every customer that wants their boat custom built exactly the way they want it. Is it time for you to move up? Are you ready to own the finest boat built? Then you need to visit the Young Boat facility in Inglis, Florida, or check them out online at youngboats.com. Our thanks to Nick Stanczyk for a great Alamorada report where he's caught 4 swords in the last 3 trips. That's pretty strong. Now we're going to pull over to 10,000 Islands and check in with our buddy Steve Dahl. Steve, how are you?
I'm doing great, Rick. How are you doing today?
Excellent, excellent. Fishing's good. Weather's getting better. Things are good up in Northeast Florida. Tell me about 10,000 Islands.
About the same. We're kind of battling some wind those last couple days. Leading into the weekend, it's supposed to be still a little windy, so it's kind of murking up our water a little bit. But for the most part, they're still there. And when I mean they, obviously the epicenter right now, all the focus has really been on tarpon. They're still, here in earnest and probably not going anywhere for a while. So same pattern. Fish are really kind of on the outside points and islands, up to 15, 20 feet of water offshore, if you will. Fish are, following tides on an incoming tide. They're kind of coming into the area passes. They might lay up in some adjacent bays. Some fish are starting to get comfortable in the bays adjacent to those passes right on the outside island areas. And then on the falling tide is, the preferred tide because it's kind of flushing everything out of the backcountry. And it's just kind of an all-you-can-eat buffet. It's just flushing all the, whether it be crabs or bait fish, things of that avail. And those fish are just kind of setting up, in the passes or at the mouth of the passes, willingly taking bait. So it's been pretty good. One thing that we've had a little bit more success with the last couple of days with the tarpon is we're throwing a lot more swim baits, and we have done that, but they're readily taking them. I think it's because they can see them a little bit better.
Well, inquiring minds want to know now. Tell me what your go-to swim bait is.
Yeah, we're throwing a bunch of different things. Some stuff made by Storm. We're taking, some Wise Guys tackle, some of the 5-inch Great Bambinos, all darker hued stuff. There has been, some Spool Tech stuff we've been throwing, but we're also taking some pages out of our western, the western part of the country. A lot of the swim bait craze out in California for bass fishing for many years, and a lot of that translates over here, and you want those single hooks. You don't want treble hooks, so don't, you don't have to get involved in that, but, nice stout hooks on 5-inch, even up to 7-inch swim baits and darker hues, play around with different types of stuff. You'd be really shocked at how fun that can be. That's kind of, if you get the itch to kind of, chuck some big swim baits around for some tarpon, now's the time to do it. So that's for sure.
Cool. You hear anything from offshore?
Yeah, we're doing pretty good on that note, too. I mean, we're battling a little bit of wind, so that's kind of holding us from the farthest reaches. You know, the near shore stuff, you know, I'd like to say stuff up to about 20 miles has been pretty consistently hit, you know, by recreational anglers and, you know, charter boat captains. Guys aren't making the super, super long runs, but lots of good snapper action. You know, some really good football mangrove snapper or football-sized mangrove snapper have been caught, and that's been, you know, kind of the trend. You know, everybody's been kind of going after those. We are seeing a little cool yellowtail bite, which is awesome. We talked about that in weeks and months past, but the reality is we're starting to see a ton of that stuff, albeit fish are small, 12 to 15 inches, but we've really never had that good of a yellowtail bite. So it's kind of cool that, you know, maybe in a couple of years we're going to have a really, really sustainable, yellowtail bite. So that bodes well. I like seeing small fish in big numbers show up in our region, especially stuff that we typically don't have. So,
oh, me too. It's always and when I was a kid growing up here in Northeast Florida, we never caught snook. Now we have 8 or 10 guides that's what they specialize in. 12 months a year is snook fishing.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. That's what you want, and so I like seeing the genesis of those things, so it's nice.
Captain Steve, as always, we appreciate it. Please tell me we can talk to you next week.
Oh, I can't wait.
All right. Thank you, buddy.
Absolutely. Be well.
Captain Steve Dahl from 10,000 Islands. Our thanks to Captain Steve Dahl telling us what's going on with the tarpon in 10,000 Islands. I'll bet you there's a few tarpon a little further on up the road, too. Let's check in with Snook Stamp Charters and Captain Greg Stamper. Greg, how are you?
I'm doing well, Rick. How are you?
Good. Tell me what's getting caught in Southwest Florida this week.
All right, so it's been a very good week in the back bays, especially when we're looking for things like snook, which are coming out full speed right now. The redfish bite has been good, although we have had some tides that were a little bit difficult, so we had to play with some other stuff like the pompano, the mackerels, etc., before we went back and did a few of those things. And we're starting to see these tarpon. They're not the juveniles, but there's some big fish hanging out in some of our back bays. And you can jump these fish here and there, but it's pretty much been nice pinfish under corks or free lining mullet that are about the fingerling size, maybe a little bit bigger, but, nothing more than about 6 inches.
That's interesting. I have some other guys, particularly on the East Coast, tell me a mullet can't get too big for a big tarpon to eat.
Well, we're not talking about giants. We're talking about fish that are probably 60, 70, maybe 80 pounds would be the big ones. The small ones are probably 30 or 40 pounds, so you're not going to be able to let those guys go after the big boys yet. The guys that have been near shore, Rick, have gotten into some nice fish, and we're talking about those ones that you would be interested in eating those big mullet, but that's not what they're using. But those fish are going to be about 100 to 150 pounds.
Woo!
They're moving from south to north, and it's full speed now if those guys want to get out there. It does matter about the weather and the wind, etc. But they're mostly catching them on either our past crabs or our mackerel crabs, which you got to go out there, late in the evening on the outgoing tides, or anytime it's pretty much dark. If it's ripping out, you're going to find those crabs, but you got to put the work in before you can get those big boys.
I gotcha. Okay. Now, you mentioned a mackerel crab. I've never heard of a mackerel crab.
Yeah, so we got a couple different types of crabs here. We have a mackerel crab, we have swimmers, and we have past crabs. You got like these blue crabs too, the smaller ones. They all look a little bit different. Depending on how much rain we get, you'll get a different scenario with each one of them being on the surface. We haven't had a lot of rain. We just got some rain, so it's going to change things up. You're not going to see as many mackerel crabs instead of you're going to see a lot more past crabs this next couple of days. So it's all about putting your time in the water, Rick, and kind of figure out what's going to happen when.
There is no substitute for time on the water. Hey, Greg, real quick before we let you go, I'm going to ask you this question. I think we can all agree that red snapper and sharks have been way overprotected all through the Florida coastlines, and it's been to the detriment of our fisheries. What fish in your area would you protect more? What do you think needs a tighter bag limit?
Okay, Rick. I'm kind of getting to the point now where if it's under 14 inches, we shouldn't be killing. We shouldn't kill it. I look at like a 10-inch mangrove snapper. That's a great example. For we got, I think Spanish mackerel's 12 inches now. Sheep's head. Listen, you're not getting nothing. Like when we catch something that's small, I tell people like, listen, this is a 1 ounce fillet. This is a bite.
Yep.
Let those things go and let everything work better in the long run. You know, we did a very good job in this neck of the woods after that we had that bad water problem with the red tide on the redfish, the snook, the trout. But in general, Rick, honestly, with me, if it's under 14 inches, come on, man.
Yeah. I've been a proponent with several species, sheep's head being one, flounder being one, Spanish mackerel being one, drum being one. A real easy limit, 5-15. Okay, you can take 5.
I'm right there with you, Rick. That's fine with me.
You can take 5, and they got to be 15 inches. Yep, that's hard to forget that one. It's hard to say I didn't remember the rules. Yep.
No, I got you there. I'm right there with you, and I support that. Are you going to run for governor?
No, that would be a no.
FWC, top in charge, the big man?
No. Everybody's not going to hate me. Are you kidding? I got enough people hate me already. Greg, I appreciate it, brother. We look forward to talking with you next week if that's okay.
All right. Tight lines, Rick. Have a great week.
Our thanks to Greg Stamper for a great Southwest Florida report. Now let's move up to the West Central area and check in with our old standby, Captain Ray Markham. Ray, how are you?
Standing by.
I got you. What's going on in West Central Florida? Times they are a-changing, aren't they?
Well, yes, sir, they are. Fortunately, we've got some reasonably decent weather today. The prediction was for a whole lot more rain and everything else that we've had over the weekend, but so far it's not so bad. But the guys that are getting out there, they're still whacking the fool out of Spanish mackerel and kingfish. And with the end of the month coming up for the big king of the beach, there's a lot of people looking for those big ones out there right now. So that, and talking to some guys that are out running well offshore, they're doing anywhere from 108 to 120 feet of water and picking up some big red grouper. Captain Brian Morgan of Captain Morgan's Fishing Adventures in St. Petersburg took a family of 6 out just late last week, and they absolutely loaded the boat with big fish. I mean, they had some big red grouper in there. They got limits. Each of them got limits. They limited out on that and mangrove snapper and back in on all by noon.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's a good trip. You're not kidding. Yep. And what's going on inshore? Anything important?
Well, important. Well, everything's important, I suppose. But if you look at it, the snook fishing is just off the charts. We've got a full moon coming up next Monday, so the tides will be ripping in here. And because of that, you can look for just about any point, any pass, anything that's got some water movement to see a few line-siders sitting there waiting to ambush some bait.
Ray, so, I know you're a hardcore artificial guy. What's your artificial of choice for a snook this time of year?
Depends on the weather, but, honestly, if I had to say I had to only pick one lure, I'd probably say the Cal Shad by DOA Lures. It catches everything, really, but for big fish, it just depends on where you're fishing and that kind of thing, because if you're looking at big fish, you're usually looking at some deeper water, probably passes with structure and things like that around bridges and whatever. And if I'm going to do something like that, I'm probably going to go to a bigger bait. I'll either go to a Terrorize or possibly the deep running bait buster. Actually, there's a new bait buster in the trolling model that is an extra heavyweight that is going to be coming out very shortly. I fished with Mark Nichols over there in Stewart and just absolutely whacked some giant snook on it.
Oh, good.
So yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing come the weekend of that full moon coming up, and I think I'm going to see if I can't take a few of them and pat them on the head and put them on their way.
I like your attitude. Thank you, Ray. As always, we appreciate it. Guys need to be careful. You know, I hear all about this pre-fishing. We're pre-fishing for the tournament. Well, there's one thing about that 40-pounder you catch while you're pre-fishing. You ain't going to catch him again, all right?
The funny thing about pre-fishing is that, you know what? They're here today and gone tomorrow.
Yeah,
so.
and I tell you, a friend of mine who shall remain nameless because he'd kill me, was a hardcore tournament fisherman. And you know how he pre-fished? He went to every spot the day before the tournament that he knew other guys really liked. So if so-and-so was doing really good by a certain rock pile, he'd make sure he went and fished it the day before. He'd leave his own spots alone, but he'd go check everybody else's for him. Nice guy. Thank you.
Like a plan. I'm going to use that one.
Yep, use that tactic. Thank you, Ray. We'll talk with you next week.
All right, bud. We'll catch you later.
Ray Markham from the West Central area. You know, most of us guys here on the Florida Sportsman podcast are hardcore saltwater fishermen. That is until April rolls around. That's because there's just nothing more exciting than watching a largemouth explode on a DOA PT being walked weedless through some new freshwater grass beds. You want a jolt to make your heart skip a beat? Try swimming a weedless DOA snake through some lily pads with dawn's fog still on the water. Now, once the sun comes up, the DOA worms can dredge Big Mama off her bed with the best of them. DOA, your unfair advantage. All right, thanks to Ray Markham for a great West Central report. Now we're going to head up into the Big Bend. That's where the mayor of Homosassa, William Toney, is waiting. How we doing, Mr. Mayor?
We're doing good. Everybody's obeying the speed limit on their golf carts. The gnats are out and feasting, and we have a beautiful evening. You know, it's just, I tell you, we've had rain-cooled water, and a bite is something that we're going to be, you know, looking at coming here in the future when it gets late May, June, and early summer, when you can get on a good bite after a hard rain like we had, and it cools that water and triggers a bite, you know, and fluctuates, you know, the pressure a little bit, and this makes a real good trout bite, redfish, and snook.
I got you. That's certainly good news. Now, you feel like when we get a whole lot of rain, my feeling has always been when you dump too much fresh water on top of saltwater fish, for the time after it's come down a while, there's a period there where I feel like they don't want to get near the surface of the water. Do you agree with me on that, or am I thinking voodoo science?
Well, you know, I bet it depends on what area of Florida that you're at, you know, and here, I can only talk about mine, but the three spring-fed rivers, Homosassa, Crystal River, and Chassahowiska, have traditionally always pumped out a lot of fresh water out into our estuaries here. And so I think that was, you know, might be our saving grace, especially in the winter months when our snook survive in the springs and everything, being that constant 72-degree water. But over the years, I found our springs don't pump as much fresh water out because, you know, state uses so much fresh water, it kind of hinders it. But, you know, I have found after, you know, say it's a June day and you're getting that first time where, you know, you're going to get burnt, it's going to be hot, it's still, you get one of those thunder boomers to come in and it cools that water a little bit, and say you find a good place to go settle down and be safe and you got a little bit of time to head back out, it seems to trigger a bite here just because it cools that water a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. And conversely, earlier in this season, the rain will actually warm the inshore waters, won't it?
Yes, it can. And, you know, like right now, we just had a big rainy weekend here on the Big Bend, which, you know, we were already in our good prime range. The water temperature was running about 74, 76, somewhere in there. So that's pretty good for us. But, you know, today I was out and, you know, we had a little bit of rain earlier in the week, and I started thinking about, you know, having to write a report every week. Why can I think about the future to help an angler in our area when it starts getting into May and June and everything like that, that's going to help them catch fish? It could be sitting at home and waiting for it to stop raining and heading out. Or, you know, in the Nature Coast, we got a lot of areas that people have cabins and things like that, or shelters, and they can get in there and get out of that rain and then get back out. So, you know, it's just an idea of, I've had a lot of luck right after a big rainstorm, rain, cold water, evening breeze. And, you know, it may not be the rain, cold water, too, as much as the overcast conditions blocking that sun from heating the water too much.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Now, I have had some outstanding offshore fishing when I was unfortunately cut off from land, but before a thunderstorm rolled in, just as it got close, and you can actually feel a barometer drop in the air cool. I've had some very good bites when that happened before.
Yep, and that's kind of what I was talking about, like the trout bite and everything. But so that's something we can look forward to. Right now we've kind of had a little more rain than we normally would get on the Big Bend this time of year. But something that we're looking forward to coming up our coast here are our tarpon. They haven't quite showed up. I've had reports of a couple anglers down toward Bayport seeing them, even up here toward Chesapeake Bay. Now I know down in Tampa they're already on them, so it's just a matter of time. And I've always felt the first morning that I'm hooking my boat on the trailer and I'm busting a sweat, that means the tarpon have arrived.
I like it. Cap, we appreciate it so much as always. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
I'll be right here in downtown Homosassa.
All right, keep them straight, buddy. We appreciate you. Captain William Toney from right up in Homosassa. He's takes care of the Big Bend for us, and we always look forward to his positive outlook in his great fishing reports. Now, let's check in with our buddy, Captain Kevin Lanier. Kevin, how are you?
Hey, Captain Rick, I'm doing great tonight. How about yourself?
Good. Everything going all right?
Well, we're not knee-deep in water anymore around here. We're only ankle-deep now. So if we get a few days of dry weather, maybe we can actually see the ground.
Yeah, I understand. All right, what's going on with the fish offshore?
Well, offshore, it's been kind of spotty because guys have not been able to get offshore because of the weather too much. But the ones that are getting out there, they are catching triggerfish, beeliners, all your typicals. We still haven't had a cobia show up in our area yet, but Panama City's gotten a couple off the pier. I did see a small kingfish that was reported. So that kind of gives us a little bit of excitement. But the weather has pretty much kept us all close to shore over the last week.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that's been that way all the way around. We had an awful lot of rain over the weekend, and the conditions offshore northeast Florida were rather nautical, but the big boats did quite well. Anything much going on inshore?
Well, we have gotten some trout fisheries have picked up a little bit. Redfish in St. Joe Bay. So they're going pretty good. I mean, nothing's been lights out. There's so much fresh water around that, I think it affects them quite a bit. So the bite's been down this week, but we're just kind of keeping our fingers crossed that all this weather pattern for spring will go away.
Yeah, we absolutely need a break, and I don't like the old April showers that bring Mayflowers. Just bring me the Mayflowers already. Let's go fishing. I don't need the April showers to bring them.
I agree.
I'm with you 100%. Kevin, as always, we appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, Captain Rick, we'll talk to you next week.
Talk to you next week. Captain Kevin Lanier. Our thanks to Kevin Lanier for a great Northwest Florida report. Now let's head on out to the Panhandle. You can't get through Florida without doing it. And let's check out Captain Tyler Massey. Tyler, how we doing?
We're doing good, Rick. How are you guys?
Excellent. How's your fishing?
Fishing's been great. So, we're warming up a little bit over here. Not too much, just a little bit. And, fishing's still been going good. And, things are picking up every day and just getting better and better. So,
all right. What's the hot bite this week? What's biting?
So I'd say, one of the hottest bites is our beach pompano fishing. It's been really spectacular this year with great numbers of fish and also, good sized fish. And that's something that anyone can do, surf fishing from the beach on the Gulf side. So live sand fleas are fresh dead shrimp peeled, fishing from the beach. And those, most people are catching their limit of 6 fish and a lot of fish over 3 pounds. So that's been a really cool thing we've had going on this year. We'll always have decent pompano fishing, but it's been exceptionally well.
Let me ask you a question. You mentioned dead shrimp. Our guys that are real serious about pompano over here on the East Coast buy live shrimp and then toss them on ice. And they want the shrimp not ever being frozen. They want them right to go from the live well to the cutting table, cut them and fish them that way. Do you like that better, or are you happy with frozen shrimp?
You definitely. So our tackle stores sell fresh dead shrimp. It's shrimp that's never been frozen, like you're talking about. They come out of the shrimp tanks when they pick them. Just the dead shrimp.
Mm-hmm.
And those do definitely work better than a frozen shrimp. You just get it; it stays on your hook better, and that's really what it comes down to. I don't think there's any difference in the smell or the flavor or whatever. they'll definitely bite the ones that have been frozen. But I think you just get a little bit, the meat's a little firmer, it stays on the hook better, you can cast it a little better. So, some people are super particular about it. There's this stuff, I don't know if you've heard of it, called fish bites that people
Sure.
can test these pompano on over here, and it's a piece of rubber. So all kinds of stuff works good for pompano.
Now, let me ask you a question, because I've seen pictures in the magazine before of guys on the West Coast, particularly in the Panhandle, sitting on step ladders in the surf, sight fishing pompano. Do they do that?
Yeah, we used to do that a lot back in the day. We don't have the time to do it as much anymore. We're fishing a lot more, but yeah, some guys definitely post up in their step ladders on the sandbar and sight fish pompano, and that's it's pretty awesome to do. And you can definitely sight fish the pompano in the boats when it's calm enough, and that's a lot of fun as well.
That's way cool. Captain Tyler, we always appreciate it so much. Please tell me we can check in with you next week.
I'll be here.
You got it. Captain Tyler Massey from the Panhandle area, and that wraps up our trip around the state tonight. Hey, it's been a good one, and we got some interesting answers to our question. For example, I wasn't the least bit prepared for Captain John Earhart to say he wants more protection for amberjack, but I can see it because there's no question they've gotten smaller. You get down to Biscayne Bay, and Captain Alan Sherman is a speckled trout guy. He wants to see them protected. I think what we could learn more about is that each guy's favorite fish is what he wants protected. We learned that Nick Stanczyk wants more protection for swordfish. I can understand that too. So there's a lot of fish that we have overmanaged. Red snapper sharks come to mind, but there's some we need more help for too. We've just got to learn balancing our marine resources. Now, when you start to come around the southwest coast, that's where Steve Dahl and Greg Stamper both talked about tarpon. The tarpon have shown up in their area, and they are on the move, and they are hungry. You get up to West Central, Ray Markham says Spanish mackerel and kingfish are all around. That's great news. The King of the Beach tournament is next week. So out in the Panhandle, they've hit their pompano run. Captain Tyler Massey says the pompano are doing very well there. Some guys are sight fishing them. Some guys are just fishing in the troughs and runouts of the beach on the West Coast. So all in all, it was a good week. We had some weather to get through. Looks like we're going to have more weather to get through, not very far along up toward the weekend this week. So we'll see what happens. But one thing you can count on, we'll be back next week with another Florida Sportsman Magazine Action Spotter podcast. Hey, they are brought to you each and every week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Tournament Master Chum, the best chum on earth. By Nosara Paradise Fishing, your dream vacation. By Shimano, bringing people and nature back together. By DOA Lures, your unfair advantage. And by Young Boats. You want the finest in flat spay and offshore hybrids? You need to check out youngboats.com. So for Florida Sportsman Magazine, until next week, I'm Captain Rick Riles, and we will see you on the rip.